I'm so glad to see you all. Thank you for joining us today. I always debates. It would be great to get back together in person, but I have to say then one nice thing is I am able to record this and share this with you all, because if you're representing your organization, but somebody else is going to handle any grant applications, then this way you can forward it on to them as well. But we do hopefully have some opportunities in the new year to get together and celebrate all the great things that you're doing. For those that may be new to the Community Foundation, my name is Thayer Talbot. I oversee the grants process. If you have questions, either my colleague Mary Dutton or I can help you throughout. All you have to do is send an email and we're happy to answer any questions. The one question, and many of you who have been through this process before, you know that we will say, if you have some ideas and you're not sure what you should apply for, you can ask the question in that, does something seem just way off base and really isn't a good consideration? But we will never say choose one or would you choose this one over that one. It really is, your work much better than we do. For many of you, as I said, you're all going to get the PowerPoint slide deck. There is a lot of information. I believe in providing lots of good information in the PowerPoint rather than just like a one-word page and you never can tell what it means when you get it. So for those that have been through the information session before, you might hear some things you've heard before, but I'm really going to focus on some further adaptations that we have made to the process. As many of you know, last year was the first year we piloted two calls for applications within a year. And we learned some great things. It was very useful and very helpful in many respects, both to our nonprofits as well as to our committees. But we also learned some things for some of our committees or some of the specific fields of interest. So we've made a few more adaptations. We continue to pilot this and continue to evaluate and adapt how well we're meeting both the needs of our nonprofits and our community externally, as well as internally, our staff and our volunteers, because we're very cognizant that we have wonderful volunteers that give so much time to the review process, and they're very thoughtful, and we have wonderful discussions, and they learn a great deal about your organizations. But application review does take significant time. So we're always working towards that balance. So you'll see some alterations in our process for both this call and the one that will happen in the spring, which we'll cover in this, and then you will answer any questions. You're more than welcome to give a wave, use the chat box to ask questions throughout. You don't have to keep them to the end. Those that have done this with us before know that I'm happy to field questions throughout. You can use the raise hand. Mary's going to help track as we go through. So let's get started. So just so you know, as we go through, you'll hear two terms used predominantly throughout the conversation about our application process. One is the annual process. We use the term process to refer to our overall annual call for applications. We always begin in the fall with the first one, because the final considerations are made by the board at our December board meeting. We are on a calendar year fiscal year. So all of this funding, for those that may be new to our process, any funding that is under consideration is calendar year 2024. If you apply in the fall, that fund and are awarded a grant, funds would be available usually by about mid-February. And if you apply during the spring cycle, right now the calendar is looking that funding would be available usually late July for about the second half of the year. So when we refer to the actual call for applications, that, for example, the one that we are entering this afternoon, when the application goes live, that we refer to as a cycle. So we are in a single application cycle within our annual process. Okay. So I'll touch on this several times throughout the presentation as we're talking about all of this, but these are some of the slight changes as well as the overall types of applications that we have made. So I'm going to start here, and then we'll talk a little bit more as we go through. So during the fall, the process that launches this afternoon, we are accepting applications in a variety of areas. So we are a funder that does recognize that general operating support is often very beneficial. We recognize that for many of our 501c3s, sometimes it's not a specific program that's launching or ongoing, but it really is helping support your core work. So we will consider general operating support requests. There are several types of entities, which we will talk about in just a little bit, as well as some 501c3 organizations that prefer to apply for a specific program or project. These can be in a broad range of our focus areas. We'll touch on that a little more in depth in just a few minutes, but we do accept applications for a specific program or project. It could be one you're seeding, could be one that's ongoing and is broadening or just continuing to do great impact in our region. During the fall call for applications, our Mary Jandron and Natalie Jandron Wiggins Fund for Birds, Other Animals, and Nature will be accepting applications. Those have very specific criteria. We will touch on that in just a few minutes. The other committees that are participating, so if you're an organization that predominantly or only serves the Killingworth community, the Killingworth Community Fund will be participating in this fall call for applications. One of our newest funds with a committee that reviews applications is our River Valley Fund for Families. They participated for the first time this last spring. They will be participating this fall. I'll touch on a little bit later on exactly the types of things that they are interested. And our At-Risk Boys Fund also will be participating in the fall call for applications. So this is where one of the ways where we have found there was some significant impact on some of our fund committees in trying to balance two calls for applications because they serve very specific fields of interest. So in the spring, many of you here can apply in the fall, but you may choose to wait till the spring, and you are more than welcome to do that. Once again, in the spring, at least as of right now, we will also again be accepting requests for general operating support from any of our 501c3 organizations or programs and projects from 501c3s or other government entities and school districts. So those groups can come in either spring or fall. The Jandron Fund will once again also be considering applications in the spring cycle. If your organization predominantly serves, or the program you really need funding for predominantly serves women and girls, including individuals identifying as female, you will wait for the spring cycle to apply. If your organization specifically serves or predominantly serves veterans and seniors, you will wait for the spring call for applications, as the St. Luke's Home Fund Committee will be participating in the spring cycle. And if your organization is an animal welfare, rescue and rehabilitation, or an organization that predominantly provides animal and human connected therapeutic services, and that is the focus of your application, you will also wait until the spring cycle, which will open in early March, to apply. As I mentioned, we did this in our evaluation. Our committees are made of wonderful volunteers. They have a lot of work, and there's a lot that goes into this, as well as assessing the types of applications that were coming in. So we're testing out sort of a little more division here with some of our committees to help them with the workload, as well as to help our nonprofits consider when they may be submitting an application. So let's get some of the definitions and the references that we're making to types of organizations. So 501c3 organizations, with regard to general operating support, regardless of where they're headquartered, you can apply as long as you are able to sufficiently state how much and the impact of the funding you are requesting will be utilized in Middlesex County. I really need to stress that our grants are to directly impact one or more of the towns within our footprint of Middlesex County. So if you serve a larger footprint, we do ask that you focus your narrative down to the impact that you make in our footprint. You 501c3 nonprofit organizations can also apply for one specific program. If there is something, if you're getting ready to seed a program and you really want to leverage good funding, and that's the request you want to submit to us, our committees love to see the specific programs and projects that you are doing. If you are representing a group that is under fiscal sponsorship, is with a government entity, that could be a town department, school division, or school districts, or large healthcare organizations, for example, a division of a hospital managed umbrella of programs, you will apply specifically for project or program support. That means you must choose one project or program, and you must speak directly to what that is, the impact is, and your request will focus down into that. School districts, we recognize, have many schools within the districts. We have gone back and forth over the years to determine the total number of applications, because often it's only a single school that's applying, not necessarily a whole district. So the school districts themselves within one of our annual funding process, so that means a combined fall and spring, is limited to a maximum of 2 total applications within one funding calendar year to be considered. And they can't be for the same school. I need to stress that. ABC Elementary School cannot submit 2 requests. It would, your maximum of 2 would mean that there are 2 different schools within the district, or something district wide, that the school is considering asking for supplemental support for. Faith-based organizations, as a reminder, we're always happy to support your work as long as it does not require adherence to a religious doctrine. It must be broad and charitable and community-wide in nature. And that is specific project support. And collaborations will also focus on the project that they are applying for, not general operating. So that's how those are defined. I do want to pause. I'm not going to read everything in this list, but I really need to focus in on a couple of things as reminders of types of applications we will not consider. We are not able to make grants directly to individuals. We also do not make grants to initiatives that take our grant money and then in some type of application process re-grant it out to other organizations. It's also really important, if you are looking at a specific project or program, we are not able to fund capital improvement projects. They're huge, that it's a large amount of money, and our grants just don't meet the criteria for that. It's also really important to remember that our grants do not fund endowments or reserve funds, meaning if you're starting a fund that's a reserve that can meet future needs somewhere down the line, capital campaigns or annual fund drives. The other big thing, if you are a group that does advocacy, we support educational information and community advocacy, but we cannot support political or lobbying activities. There are other things on this list. It'll be in the PowerPoint. It's also on our website. I strongly recommend, just so you're aware of all of it, that you read this full piece. So that you have a clear understanding of that. We always get the question, can our organization submit multiple applications, particularly because we have the Janvern Fund now that has its application as well as our regular general application process? No, it's one application per organization. We do also get the question, if we're collaborating with someone, can the collaboration submit an application, and then can our nonprofit submit an application for something else? As long as you are not the lead organization in the collaboration, yes, your organization independently could also submit an application for consideration. However, in no way can the funding that you're applying for be attached to your work within the collaboration. It must be completely separate. Yeah. And the organization that takes the lead on the collaboration, that is the only application they are able to submit in the process. As a reminder, we are always forward funding. So our grant awards, should you receive one, cannot be used to back pay expenses. So for example, our fall cycle will award grants that will be released at the top of the new year in 2024. So you could not pay expenses that you incurred in 2023 with that grant money. And the same thing, the spring cycle will end about mid-year, so you could not incur lots of expenses in the first quarter or first and second quarter of 2024 with the hopes of getting a grant to then turn around and pay off those expenses. Our grant funding must go forward. When we refer to general funding, that means our general application. That's all those focus areas, including our fields of interest, with the exception of Janvrin. That's a maximum of $5,000. The Janvrin Fund will consider grant requests up to $15,000. They have an application on our website as well, and I'll show that to you in just a little bit so that you know which one you should be going to, where those forms will be available today. I will reiterate, those that have had conversations with us in the past, whether on the phone or in person, you know, I always say we would love to be able to fund any and every application that we receive. Unfortunately, funding is finite. We're not able to do that. It is a competitive process. We do our best, and we applaud our volunteers who work with on the committees to try to make the breadth of impact, the depth of impact as much as possible. But we are not, there is no guarantee of funding through submitting an application. We will continue to ask the ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act grant question. We do, it does not necessarily prohibit anyone from receiving or being considered for a grant or even submitting an application. It does provide us a better understanding of the needs of all of our nonprofits and their abilities to access revenue, as well as the status of any funding applications which have been awarded through ARPA and where that process is. For those that have been through our process for several years, you know that we in the past had a 3-year on, 1-year off process, where if you had 3 consecutive competitive awards, you had to take a year off. We tabled that during COVID. It will be tabled again for this year. However, we do continue to evaluate the impact of tabling that guideline. And again, just a reminder, if you have received previous grant awards, there is no guarantee of continued support, though we always encourage everyone to submit their applications. Most of you have, you'll see on that, we do give an outline of the application itself. For those that are new to our process, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I just want to say we try to streamline our application as much as possible. So it's 2 core questions. There are 2 narrative questions on our application. For those that have done this before, you're very familiar with this. The first one is about the need, and the second is about the sustainability. Because we only ask 2 core questions that are narrative based, it's really up to you to think about how you discuss your work and the impact that you are making, as well as how you continue to sustain your work in the community. And please, definitely try to include as much information in there as possible. It's very helpful and very informative to our committees. They learn a lot during this process, and we appreciate the time that you put into drafting those responses. If you're seeding or piloting a program, please make sure that you include in your narratives where you are in the development process and what it's going to take to launch that program, as well as to, what your plan is to be sustainable with it should it be successful. So when we talk about general funding requests, that can be general operating support if it's for our 501c3s, which could be supporting the organization's general operations and its work. It could be supporting a variety of programs or services. Could be for technology, equipment, capacity building, project implementation, some training or technical assistance. It's within any of our areas of our focus areas, and they're here as well as on our website. Even for those organizations that under the guidelines for what type of organization you are, if you're doing a specific program or project, you will complete the same general application, and you'll have an opportunity to select the areas that best meet the type of request that you're submitting. I want to, because we have certain fields of interest participating in this committee or in this cycle, this fall cycle, as well as in the spring, you will not see those funds specifically listed on the application. You don't have to worry about selecting the fund committee that will review your application. We do that internally based on the demographic and the focus area questions that you answer. We also are always happy to give a shout out to our funding partner, GSB, which is Guilford Savings Bank. We were very honored that they selected us as one of 4 community foundations to support their funding opportunities. So if you have received funding from GSB in the past, when they were doing their own application review for general requests for support, not sponsorships, but general requests for support, we now handle those that fall within Middlesex County. As a reminder, if you are serving at-risk boys and young men, or if you're serving Killingworth or human and basic needs services along the shoreline, those are also applications that will be all part of this general application process in the fall. The next 2 pages, I'll let you read them, and when you get them, I won't read them for you, but they outline what each of our fund committees that are included either in the fall process or the spring process, what their focus area is and the type of projects or programs that we select out of the whole batch of applications that are submitted for those individual committees to review. I'm going to touch on JANVRN for just a moment because some of you may qualify for a JANVRN fund application. It is on our website. I'll show you in just a moment. It is an application form of its own. It's not the general application, but it's very, very similar in its structure and the types of questions it asks. The JANVRN fund is focused specifically to preserve, protect, and steward land, waterways, and wildlife habitats for the benefit of the county's ecosystem. This includes habitats for birds and other wildlife, could be the well-being and enjoyment of our residents as well of those natural areas. The funding request is up to $15,000 for this committee to consider. It can touch communities outside our region, surrounding communities to Middlesex County, but must focus on Middlesex County. So we know, we have a big footprint and we have lots of groups on either side of the edges of our community. So there's a lot of crossover. We recognize that, but these projects and programs really need to have a foundation in Middlesex County. The JANVRN committee is very interested in applications that leverage the organizational dollars and partnerships. They'll consider programs and projects that are creative, could be a little out of the box. They'll do traditional stewardship and wildlife and habitat stewardship projects, traditional bird projects, but they're also very interested in the ways many of our organizations, particularly in collaborations and partnerships, are thinking creatively out of the box to not only steward and educate about the impact of our natural environment, our wildlife habitats, and the impact they have on the wellness of our communities as a whole, but looking for ways to foster equitable conservation and stewardship, which is really focusing on how to bring entire communities into the natural world and encourage those that may not have access ordinarily to many of our natural environments and our wildlife habitats to get involved, have access to them, and be included in that broader work to support them and maintain them. There's some things here of types of applications that they've considered in the past, and the overall look of what they are. I will stress at this time, we are not through this process accepting land acquisition applications. The next two slides, which you'll get sort of delve a little more in equitable conservation and stewardship and thinking out of the box. There's a lot of information here as well as on the website. But if you do have questions, I want to stress, please reach out to Mary or myself with those. You can shoot us an email anytime. We're happy to answer any questions as you spend time looking at the various guidelines and criteria. We're always happy. We try to make this as streamlined as possible. So I'm going to move really quickly to just for those particularly that are new to our process, where you're going to find information on our website. When you're on our website, if you underneath our banner, you will see this line of menus. If you hover over the one that reads nonprofits, you'll see this drop-down list. The grants program page on the left will contain primary information as well as links to guidelines, and but under that there are two application landing pages. One is for what we refer to as the general funding application. That is for the majority of attendees on this workshop. Most of you will complete the general funding application, whether you're seeking a specific support for a specific project or program, or you're seeking general support. If you are applying specifically under the criteria of the Janvrin Fund, you will use the application that will be on the Janvrin Fund information page. There is a page specifically for the timeline as well as our guidelines under the resources. And for those that may be new to our process, and if you want to know looking forward what you might be required or expected to do for marketing your grant, should you receive one through the process, that's also under the resources section. I want to talk about the budget documents for a moment, because this is a minor change that we've made based on what happened last year as we came through. And this, Mary will laugh. She did a lot of work on helping. We were trying to make this as streamlined as possible and make it make sense. But if it doesn't, please ask questions. This is a great time to ask questions. So what's required? What's a required piece that has to be submitted with your application? All organizations, regardless of whether they are a collaboration, fiscal sponsorship, a government entity, or a 501c3, must submit the board's approved operations budget for the current year, and that includes the expenses and the revenues section. So that's everybody. We're as we like to say, we are the nosy aunties, and it helps us answer questions that may come in general about what type of supports you're expecting, as well as what it takes to help your organization do its work. If you are an organization whose footprint encompasses more than Middlesex County, so maybe you are an entity that serves or is working to increase how much impact you have in Middlesex County, but maybe you also do a lot of work in New Haven County and a lot of work in Hartford. So your operation budget that is approved by your board is built for a very large footprint. So yes, that is going to be the operations budget in bullet number 1 that you will submit. But we are asking that you also either use our CFMC project budget or create an excerpt that only outlines what portions, what are the estimated expenses and revenues of your specific work in Middlesex County. We get this question a lot when applications are being reviewed for very large organizations that have very large footprints, and because our impact and our focus is to really help make a positive impact within the towns of Middlesex County, we often get these types of questions from our volunteers reviewing the applications. They're looking at very large numbers and they're trying to determine what portion of that actually is dedicated to your work in Middlesex County. Organizations that are applying for a specific project or program must also, on top of your organization's overall general operating budget in bullet 1, use the CFMC project budget form on our website. You download it you download it in a Word document, you fill it out, you PDF it, and you will upload it to your application. This outlines the specific expenses and revenues tied to the project for which you are seeking funding. We often get requests to fully fund a project or program. And I want to stress here, and it's also stressed later in the PowerPoint, if you're only listing the community, if the Community Foundation is listed as the only funder for a program or project, we really want to know why. Like, why is it that we are the only funder you are seeking to support, launch, or continue a program or project? Particularly when the question arises too of where is the organization's own sort of a piece of that? Where is their part of the operations piece to get that program off the ground or to move forward? So we're really looking at the number of times we're asked to fully fund something, particularly when there is no explanation on that form as to why. When you're filling out the project budget, we don't need to know the specific cost of just the pencils or just the papers, but please don't just do program expenses and the total amount of what you're estimating. What's involved in those program expenses? Is it salaries? Is it room fees? Is it marketing materials? Is it materials for attendees? Is it assessment? What are the things that go into helping that program or project move forward? And many often miss this. There is a bottom portion to that page that's the estimated reviews and what the status is. Is it committed or is it pending? So for your projects or programs, please make sure you complete that piece as well. Just a few tips, particularly if you're new to writing grants or writing grants for us. If you use acronyms, please make sure in your narrative, the first time out, you say what the acronym actually means, because our wonderful volunteers come from the community and they don't know all the acronyms. Please, in your narratives, be clear and specific and focused about what your need is, what your work is, and how the grant request will support that and help that move forward, as well as the impact. I will tell you the things we have noticed in the past. This is a big tip, particularly if you are new to us. You have the option in the demographics section of our application to choose all the 15 towns in Middlesex County. But if you click off that you serve all 15 towns and it's being reflected in your application, but everything in your narrative only talks about 3 towns, then you should only check off those 3 towns, because the demographic areas, if it's program or project related, is the specific towns where that work is. If you serve a larger or you're seeking general operating support, once again, what is your footprint? Where is your impact? If you are an organization that predominantly serves towns located in the, say, from Killingworth and down, but you don't really have a lot of touch point or impact or do any programs in, say, Cromwell, Middlefield, or Portland, please don't select those. So that we do ask, don't check all the boxes just because they're there to be checked. And it's just something we've noticed in the past, so I keep reiterating that. There's lots of their FAQs. The application outline document will be on the website. I encourage all of you to take a look at all of those pieces, ask any questions. We work very hard to be very responsive to questions coming in by email about anything, if something's not clear. As a reminder for those that have been through the process before, but for those of you who may be new, our application does require certain documents to be uploaded. They can only be uploaded in PDF. I cannot stress this enough. I get questions and not like, please make sure that the PDF doesn't come out at like, 100 meg, because the website's not going to take a file that's 100 meg in size. But it really is important as PDF. I get these questions all the time. Someone will email and say, it's not taking my document. So I'll ask them to send it to me. Sure enough, it's a JPEG, and it's not designed to take that up. And the application form does not have a print preview. So we do provide the application outline that you can work on and do, but you will get a final copy of it via email once you click submit. As a reminder, the organization operating budget is required, as well as a list of the board of directors with their professional affiliations. That helps us just sort of see who's on your board and what the skill set is that's on your board. The IRS determination letter is required, or from a government entity. Your finance office usually has a letter that they have ready to go for grant applications. And if it's a project specific application or a general support for an organization with a very large footprint, but you are also providing specific operation budget information for your work in Middlesex County, that document as well. For those that are doing programs with schools, in collaboration with schools, if you're in 501c that a school is partnered with you to bring a program into their students, you will need letters of support. And if it's a collaboration, the one organization is the primary applicant, and the others that are collaborators, full partners in working on the collaboration or the program to get it moving forward, each of you, those organizations should submit a letter of support for the collaborative program or project. If you are an entity that uses a fiduciary agent or sponsor to receive grant awards on your behalf, we have a special fiduciary agent form that fiduciary needs to complete, where they agree to handle the grant awards that may be distributed. The next few slides are some reminders and outline partnerships and collaborations, particularly with regard to letters of support. It's pretty straightforward. As I mentioned, we do require a letter of support. I will take a moment to say, if you do a collaborative program with a school, you are an outside organization and you've partnered with a school to bring a program into the school. First of all, these must have letters of support that are more than just from the principal and the superintendent, that are more than just, we're so thrilled to have ABC bring this program to our school. We need to know how it is. We need to make sure the school has it in their calendar, they're ready to launch it, and we need to understand from their perspective how it supports their curriculum rather than supplants it. General reminders, please make sure that your applications are complete when they're submitted. If you have any problems at any time with the website or trying to get an application submitted, please reach out to us. Sometimes we have technical difficulties. There are many people on the call today who've probably been through some technology glitches with us, and they can all tell you that they happen, and we're happy. We need to actually know about them if you're having a problem. And if you don't, once you click submit, give it a little bit of time. If our website is really busy with lots of applications come in, sometimes there's a little bit of delay when you get your final online submission notification. But if you don't receive your copy of your application, let us know. We can forward that to you. Okay, I know I'm gonna call out some of my friends on the call today who all can help me with this because you've all been through it, right? Claire and Allison, I know you're here, and Amber's here too. So this is the reminder we give to everyone. If you are new to our application process, the application, while it's in process, while you are working on it, Mary and I can't see it. We can't access it. We can't check on it for you. We can't grab the link for you because you do have the option to save and finish later. So when you click save and finish later, you're going to get a window that's going to pop up, and it's going to give you all of this information right here, right? It's going to give you this link. Please copy this link. And I don't know if she's on the call today, but I'm going to give our friend Lori Lodge a big shout out because Lori came up with the best hint ever. Lori always drafts her narrative in Word because then she can just copy and paste it into the application, and she can track how many words because we do have character restrictions on the amount of narrative. So Lori came up with a great idea. She copies this link and she pastes it at the top of her Word document where she's drafting her narrative so that she always has it right in there. The link will expire after 30 days. We don't really have too much of a problem with that because we have about 30 days to when we are closing, or probably a little 2 days less than that when when submissions are due. But if you don't have this link and you've started your application, let's say you're almost finished with it, Mary and I can't get this for you. I'm so sorry. It's on a temporary server. We don't have access to it. So please make sure that you copy this link before you click send me the link, just in case something happens to the email and it gets jammed in your quarantine folders or disappears into the internet wilderness, which we know is out there, right? And when it asks for the email address, it wants your email address. Where do you want it to send the link?
We might have a question. Pia, do you have a question?
Oh, I'm just writing notes on my little pad.
Oh, okay. I wanted to make sure you were raising a hand.
So I'm going to pause. Okay, Elsa has a question. Go ahead, Elsa. And you need to unmute for me.
Yeah, I apologize for that. I'm wondering when the application will be available.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. You're going to jinx me, Elsa. Fingers crossed, if all goes well, it should be live by about 4 o'clock this afternoon. Okay.
Wait, yeah,
but if you go to the page and the link isn't live yet, it means that you jinxed me. Okay. And it's not working. But yeah, if all goes well, the application form and the documents will be on the website by 4 o'clock this afternoon. And if worse comes to worse, then it would be tomorrow morning. But our goal is to have everything live this afternoon.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm going to pause here for just a minute before I remind everybody about past evaluations. Does anybody else have any questions? Because I went like woo, woo, woo. I went through a lot of information there, and I know we have returning people, so you've heard a lot of this, but I know we have a lot of new people as well. And while I'm at it, I'm waiting to see if anybody else has questions. I'm going to say, I know I'm really skimming right down the attendee list here very quickly, but I know Claire is here, and Amber and Allison, and I know a couple of others are here. Tanya, I know you're here. So what have I forgotten? What were the big things that I should remember to remind people or explain? Anybody? Did I forget anything? I'm taking that as maybe I haven't forgotten anything. Oh, Allison's told me no. Thank you, Allison. I appreciate it. All right. As a reminder, part of this process is the evaluations for those of you that have received previous funding awards. So I know the very first question I'm going to get from some who came through in the spring process, which was a previous funding year, but we haven't finished that. That's okay. Just that's when you request the interim grant report. But for those that had grant awards that at the top of the year that were in last year's fall process, or previous grants that had not been completed as of the last, say, 6 or 8 months, if you have fully expended those grants and that piece is ready to, and you have not submitted your online your final evaluation for those grants, those final evaluations are due by September 30th. The evaluation, just like the application, is submitted via our website. You can upload stories, you can upload photos. That one will take JPEGs. If you have video links, please Dropbox them or other cloud sharing to me, because the video file itself is going to be too big to upload to the grant evaluation. But if you're in process on a grant, would be an interim grant report. That's a different form, and all you need to do is just send Mary an email or send me an email, and we'll send that form out to you. We always are looking for photos and stories of past grants. Anything, we always need your help. We love to tell your story. We share them at board meetings. We're working on another report to the community. We've got Mary's great at e-news. We love to share out stories. So if you've got a little short story that you've used and it was thanks to a grant from the Community Foundation, we're happy to do that. Let's see. Jennifer has a question. Oh, yes, Jennifer, I'm getting to the timelines coming up in just a second, so I will answer that. Thank you for asking that. So here's the fall timeline. So if you're considering an application in the fall, fingers crossed, later today, the application forms will be available and active with all the documentation to go along with them. And they are due September 28th at 4 p.m. In the fall cycle, we will be reviewing applications throughout October, and if there's any follow-up, staff will be doing that. The committees will make their have their discussions and make recommendations in November, and our board will make their final considerations in December. We'll notify everyone at the end of December, early January, and that's funding that's considered calendar year 2024 and will be released at the usually around February. If you choose to wait for the second call for applications, which you are more than welcome to do, there is no requirement you must submit because you came to the workshop. We're glad you're here. That one will have, and you've been to this, so unless there's a major change, you will not have to attend another information session unless you'd like to, but we will be offering that information session in February, and we'll open that cycle probably in early to mid-March. Those requests are reviewed throughout April, and the committees make their recommendations usually mid-May or late May for a board consideration in June. And that grant funding would be available as of probably late July. So that's the cycle that will be in the spring. So if you want to apply now, but you're also welcome if you're not ready or it falls within a different framework for your budgeting purposes, you're more than welcome to also wait for the spring. And the PowerPoint has all our contact information. So I'm going to stop sharing at this point just so I can see everybody again. While we would very much like to fund every application that comes into us, and there is finite funding, but the competitive application process is very helpful to us because it lets us know what's going on in the community. It tells us what you're working on. You never know who might walk into the door of the Community Foundation next week. I have no idea who will walk into the door of the Community Foundation next week, and they may come in and say, you know, I want to help XYZ. Do you know a nonprofit working on that? So that's also what the application process helps us do. If for some reason, for whatever reason, you apply in the fall cycle and you are not awarded funding, you are welcome to reapply in the spring cycle, okay? If you apply in the fall cycle, because remember, this is all calendar year 2024 funding that we're looking at. If you apply in the fall and you receive a grant award, you are not eligible to apply in the spring, okay? So I want to make sure we're clear on that, just so everybody gets how that works. So, all right. Questions, conundrums, people who have been through this with us before. What have I forgotten, or what special trick or tip? We have a lot of new nonprofits here, or new to me, I should say. They're not new, they just happen to be new to the Community Foundation. So if you have advice, this is your time to share your stellar advice of working with the Community Foundation. Allison has a really good point. Do not wait for the last minute. Thank you. I knew I was forgetting something. So it's not a hard application. And there will be a PDF that tells you all the questions on the, you know, all the demographics. You can do all this prep work before you ever click the application link. And I really, help me out here, like unmute yourselves. Is it a hard application? It's not a hard application, right? We really have tried to make it a pretty straightforward application, but please don't wait till the last minute for 3 reasons. One, because you're going to find out you need something from somebody that they're not there to get it for you. And then all of a sudden you got to click submit because it's 4 o'clock on September 28th and you're missing pieces of information. And then you're panicked and you think, oh my gosh. 2, you have technological issues, or we have technological issues. And that has happened. Or 3, there is some unforeseen thing that happens in the universe that will happen within the last 3 hours and you're trying to get it done. And all of a sudden, boop, it's 8 o'clock on September 28th. And you get this little reminder on your calendar that pops up that says, you should have submitted your application 4 hours ago. Donna is so nice. They were first timers last year. She's recommending that you look at the outline so that you see how we ask the question and make sure that you get your work on the your big narrative, because we do ask for just 2 big narrative responses, not lots of little mini questions. All right, everyone, we're going to get you the links. It'll probably just between you, me, and the wall. It may be early next week because it's been a crazy week, but we will send you the link to the recording. We will send you the link, or we will send you the PDF, and it'll all be on the website too. So thanks, everyone. It was good to see you.